Hi everyone, my name is Deborah Lima. I'm Ventures reporter at the South Florida Business Journal.
I'm Brian Mandel. I'm a senior reporter at the South Florida Business Journal. We're here today to talk about the Amazon effect. It's a story on Amazon.com that all 40 business journal papers across the country have been working on.
The Amazon effect was, as Brian said, a 6-month-long reporting project that analyzed public records, financial filings, and interviewed dozens of elected officials and community leaders to try and determine how it is that Amazon's taxpayer-subsidized growth across the United States is going to be impacting the economy, both nationally and locally. Here in South Florida, we look specifically at the Opa-locka facility that they're building. Broke ground this summer, and it's expected to open by 2018, right before the holiday season.
So our national reporting looked at the amount of taxpayer subsidies that Amazon received. In many states and many cities across the nation, Amazon has gone to taxpayers to help get reimbursed in tax dollars or get money awards for the projects they've been building. Nationally, Amazon has been approved for over $1.2 billion in subsidies for their facility expansion. In Miami-Dade County, Amazon received several large subsidies, $150,000 subsidy for their first facility near Doral, a $1.5 million taxpayer rebate for the facility that's coming out of Opa-locka, plus the developer of the Amazon facility qualified for a $5 million public bond to support the infrastructure of the site where Amazon will have their warehouse. In exchange, Amazon did promise to create jobs, including 1,000 jobs at the Opa-locka facility.
Yeah, so that's kind of the impact of the project on the South Florida economy. They're going to be building this 855,000 square foot facility and creating 1,000 jobs to get that site up and running. The thing is that those jobs are not going to be engineering jobs, they're not going to be tech-related jobs. So they're going to be adding to an already large pool of low-skill, low-paying labor that already exists in South Florida. And so some critics argue that the project should not have been backed by government subsidies or any other incentives, and that Amazon is in a position to threaten small businesses, which in South Florida, as in many other places in the US, they're the backbone of the economy. So that's a big issue that was brought up. And there's also automation.
We spoke to some small business people. We spoke to Mitchell Kaplan from Books and Books, a local bookstore. A lot of companies across the nation have had difficulty competing with Amazon on their low costs of delivery. Sometimes, even leaving, they'll lose money selling something if they can gain sales. So they're frustrated that local businesses aren't receiving taxpayer incentive. They're not receiving help from the government, and yet Amazon is getting help to expand, to come here and to sell their products faster here. And at the same time, we see a lot of companies in the, you probably have seen in the malls, some stores going out of business, some big national retailers filing bankruptcy, even Toys R Us. So, are we kind of picking winners and losers here by helping Amazon and not helping other businesses?
Yeah, that's definitely a big part of this, the Amazon effect, as we're calling it. But there's a counter argument to that as well that we discuss in the story, that Amazon represents this sort of tidal shift in American business. Things are gearing towards tech, automation, on demand, getting things to consumers at the tap of a phone, and quick delivery, making it as painless a transaction as possible. And as we saw with Uber and Lyft and that fight that ride-hailing platforms had against taxis and backlash in certain cities against Uber and Lyft to try and keep them out, we've seen that kind of resistance to change can end up being a counterproductive activity for some cities. And so here in South Florida, the attitude of some has been that it's important to get on board with the changes that are afoot and to facilitate them as best as possible so that the entire ordeal is as beneficial to everybody, as beneficial as it can be. But I guess it remains to be seen how that pans out exactly.
Yeah, and I think there was a need to accommodate. They wanted Amazon to feel comfortable here. They're hoping Amazon will open more facilities here, perhaps move some of their workforce here, as Amazon looks to open a second headquarters in the United States. But I think a lot of people also have to ask the question, did Amazon need incentives? Was Amazon going to come here regardless? We have so many consumers, so many people buying things that they need to have fast delivery. They need to reach this market. So I don't see how it could have been an option for Amazon to not open anything here. Yeah. They opened in Orlando without any subsidies.
That's kind of what was most surprising to me while we were doing the reporting for this story, was that the Inspector General for Miami-Dade County pointed out some of the things that Brian just mentioned, challenged certain terms of the deal that would be bringing Amazon to South Florida and get the Opa-locka facility up and running. But a lot of the points that Mary Cagle, Inspector General for the county, made were basically left out of the equation once the deal was over and done with. And it, I guess, raises questions as to what it is that's being prioritized when it comes to shaping the economy.
And there were a couple areas where the Inspector General was critical of the project. One was on the wages requirement. The county lowered the wage requirement for these Amazon jobs, made sure only half of the 1,000 jobs had to qualify for paying any type of average wage. And then the wage for the bond, it was about $24,000, average job, which is not that much in this economy. I mean, when you look at a lot of the retail jobs and everything that are popping up, there are a lot in that range. Our issue has been getting higher paying jobs where you can afford to live in a very expensive community here. I mean, rent is a lot here. So are we creating jobs that you can afford to live here? And the county, again, changed the rules a little bit for Amazon. Projects funded with the $5 million Better Building Community Bond, it was supposed to have a living wage at those projects. So the county amended the lease for this Opa-locka Business Park in a way that Amazon did not have to pay living wages, wages where your salary could afford the average cost of living in Miami-Dade. The only jobs that have to pay living wages are the construction jobs for the water and sewer pumps for the land. So that was something where the county accommodated Amazon, but at what cost to jobs? And the county also did not require that they hire local workers. In many major projects we've seen, such as the plan to do the Beckham Stadium, soccer stadium, the Tri-Rail station being built in downtown Miami next to Brightline, the county said you have to hire a certain percentage of local workers, either from the county or from a local zip code. You have to hire a certain percentage of local minority contractors in construction. They did not negotiate that into the deal for the business park that Amazon is using.
But one could probably say, and this is a point that we touch on in the story, it's true that they're not exactly required to hire locally from within a certain mile radius from the facility, but those jobs will be there for the residents of Opa-locka if they're able to get them. And it can be argued that in this case, while low-paying jobs, it's better than no jobs. Opa-locka for a long time has dealt with a high unemployment rate. Whereas the state average is about 8%, Opa-locka is dealing with 12% unemployment, 11.9 actually. And many of those who actually are employed are considered working poor, and many of the families live at or below the poverty line. So it could be dismissed as elitist to say, well, these jobs only pay between $24,000 and $27,000, depending on the benefits that the job is attached to. And those people could use those wages, however low they might seem to somebody who knows what the average annual income in Miami-Dade County is.
Yeah, I think it's possible there might be other development in Opa-locka because of this. There might be additional warehouses built in the area. There are already many more planned. You could see some restaurants, probably more like fast food or fast casual restaurants or kind of a working lunch developed in Opa-locka because of this. I think the question is can the city really capitalize? Can the local workforce agencies train the people in Opa-locka to be ready for those jobs and to capitalize on them? And will they create the right housing in Opa-locka so people can live near the facility? Because listen, the facility was located there because it's close to the highway, so you could have a lot of people driving from Doral and from Miramar and working in Amazon and then going home. I think a lot of the people in Opa-locka would love if it provided jobs for the area and created new development and new housing in the area, which hasn't seen new housing in a very long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was kind of surprising to me too, that these incentive deals and these bonds that are issued sometimes, they look at projects in a very narrow sense, and so they don't always consider these things that you're talking about. Is this going to create housing? Is this going to create other jobs? Will there be certain ripple effects? And it can be argued that there are so many variables in that kind of analysis that it's perhaps better and better use of public officials' time to look at things more narrowly. But I guess it could also be concerning to residents who feel as though their tax dollars are going to a company that could effectively decimate small business and add to this overflowing pool of low-wage jobs that we're desperately trying to change and supplement with high-paying jobs.
And will this impact the food industry too? Because remember, Amazon bought Whole Foods. There's a lot of talk about Amazon getting into fresh food delivery, and having more facilities gives them a much better capability to do fresh food delivery. Which again, will that impact the local grocery stores, the local corner food stores, even local restaurants when it comes to, can Amazon deliver like freshly prepared meals to you all of a sudden? So I know that those kind of economic studies are not part of this, and it's not necessary that the county could stop Amazon from doing what it wants to do, but the question is, should the county be providing an incentive for a company that is competing with other, local brick and mortar businesses and other companies that have been part of our community for years?
Digital producer Iman Reiser here. Deborah, can you tell us if this is going to be good for the South Florida economy, with all the points that you brought up?
Yeah, like I said, these are 1,000 jobs coming to a site that has been virtually untouched for more than 45 years. So that's a good thing. This is one of the largest, most successful companies in the world expanding in our market. So that can also be considered good. They're going to be potentially employing people who have been underserved for years. So that's also good. But that's really what the point of this whole analysis was, because it's difficult to look at those things individually and then add them all together and then determine, is this good or bad? It's a complex thing, and Amazon is held to those 1,000 jobs for a 6-year term period. That's all the incentive deal runs for. They're getting a portion of that $1.5 million over those 6 years gradually. But what other side effects this project has, it remains to be seen. Obviously, some critics have some opinions and some predictions for how this is going to play out, and I would say that it really falls both ways, and it just depends on how it is that other aspects of our economy shift alongside this massive project. And I mean, if nothing else, this will be a learning lesson for local economic development agencies that are trying to snare these massive companies and figuring out the best way to do it so that their constituents are well served.
Brian, what do you think?
Amazon is going to accelerate the rapid change that's happening to brick and mortar businesses across the country. The bookstores were one of the first industries that were impacted by Amazon. As an author, I can tell you it becomes vastly more complicated when you have small booksellers trying to compete with now book delivery, where you can't compete with Amazon on pricing. You have a product that you can sample it online, so you don't have to go to the store. Mm-hmm. So booksellers had to figure out how to compete. Now clothing retailers are having to figure out how to compete with them. Furniture retailers, electronic retailers, everyone is trying to figure this out. How do you deal with e-commerce? And the more Amazon is able to deliver more quickly, more industries are going to be impacted. Especially now, you're going to see grocery stores that are going to be impacted by Amazon when people can get all their groceries delivered to them without having to spend like an hour or a half hour shopping. So then it will become, well, if I'm a retailer, how do I create an experience where people will want to show up in person instead of order online, where people will enjoy coming to my store and make a social activity out of it. I think that's going to be the challenge, and it's happening anyway. But by doing anything to help Amazon, you're speeding it along. So all businesses that are in competition with Amazon need to be very forward thinking.
And lastly, Deborah, can you tell us where to find your story?
Yes, so our story is on the homepage of the South Florida Business Journal, which you can reach by going to bizjournal.com/South Florida. And as we mentioned, this is one part of a national project, so you can also have a look at the national overview of Amazon's growth in the U.S., along with all of the other factoids that go with both our market and others.
Thanks you guys so much.
Thank you.
That was so good.